We have now learned that on October 3rd, Afghan forces advised that they were taking fire from enemy positions and asked for air support from U.S. forces. An airstrike was then called to eliminate the Taliban threat, and several civilians were accidentally struck.
22 civilians died in that airstrike over a Doctors Without Borders hospital. It happened over the weekend. 3 separate investigations are now being looked into that incident, but a UN spokesperson says attacks against medical facilities could amount to a war crime. And for much more on this story, we're joined now by Jacqueline Klimas, national security correspondent for the Washington Examiner. Thanks so much for joining us here on Newsmax Now. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Jacqueline, jumping right to it, do you think this constitutes a war crime on behalf of the U.S.?
Doctors Without Borders is saying that it's absolutely a war crime. They're saying in a statement over the weekend that the hospital was not being used as a Taliban stronghold, and that it was specifically targeted, whereas other buildings in the same compound weren't hit, that these airstrikes were hitting directly on top of this hospital, and they're actually calling for an independent investigation separate from the UN, the American, or the Afghan ones that are already ongoing that you mentioned.
Jacqueline, how often do bombings like this end in civilian casualties?
The Pentagon says that their pilots, the U.S. pilots, are the best trained, they're the most accurate. I know once earlier this year there was a U.S. strike that ended in some civilian casualties in the Middle East. I can't remember if it was Iraq or Syria, but it's not a super common outcome, at least from the public reports that we have.
I mean, to hear that we're having that many independent investigations, is that normal?
I think it would be normal for both the United States and the Afghan government to conduct something. People often clamor for outside investigations or independent investigations. During the anthrax scare, there was a lot of talk about, the Defense Department shouldn't be investigating itself. So I think it's normal at a time like this for everyone to just want to know what's going on. And John Campbell, General Campbell, briefed the press this morning. He said that they expect to have results from a preliminary investigation in just a couple days. So I think the Pentagon in this case is also very eager to find out exactly what happened.
At today's White House news briefing, Press Secretary Josh Earnest was asked about whether Doctors Without Borders would be authorized to conduct a private investigation, and this was his official response.
The President obviously has confidence in these 3 investigations to provide that full accounting that he seeks.
Doctors Without Borders suggests U.S. officials are trying to shift the blame over to Afghanistan. Would a private investigation unveil more than the 3 agencies currently pursuing this investigation?
I think it might. An independent investigation might give some peace of mind to Doctors Without Borders. I mean, I don't think anyone would suggest that the Defense Department and the UN wouldn't do a thorough investigation.
How long do you think that this is going to play out?
I think, based on General Campbell's tone today in the press briefing, he seems eager to get results soon and to get it wrapped up quickly. But of course, it would not be uncommon for investigations to take longer than planned.
Tomorrow, I want to talk about another topic, shift gears a little bit. Tomorrow, the Senate will take up the 2016 National Defense Authorization Act, which could cause some friction between Obama and Congress, seeing as the president said he would veto it unless Republicans lift the caps on defense and non-defense spending. Jacqueline, will Congress make any concessions? Do you foresee that happening?
I talked to some analysts late last week, and they said that if Congress is sent back to the drawing board, it's not quite clear where they'll go. They can't solve this budget cap problem with the NDAA alone. There would really need to be a broader budget deal, something like the Ryan Murray deal from a couple of years ago, to be able to fix the funding problem that the president and some Democrats see with this year's defense bill.
So what do you ultimately foresee happening? Do you think it's just gonna, the president is just gonna veto it?
It seems, of course, the president has said that he would veto it before, so it's not like there isn't precedent for him saying this and then signing it anyway. There have been 4 times in the past that it has been vetoed. but those have always been because of a specific policy provision, not because of a funding priority. So right now, we're sort of wading into uncharted waters. No one's really sure exactly how this is going to play out.
All right, Jacqueline Klimas, national security correspondent for the Washington Examiner. Thanks so much for joining us here on Newsmax Now. Hope to have you back.
Thank you.
And coming up next on Newsmax Now, actually coming up tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, you want to make sure you watch this. Dr. Ben Carson, he's going to have a sit-down with our very own Steve Malzberg, a one-on-one, to discuss his latest surge in the polls. Can he surpass current poll leader Donald Trump? Find out from Dr. Carson in his own words. Again, that's tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. And is Dr. Carson your choice for the 2016 GOP poll? We want to know. All you have to do is go to newsmaxpolls.com right now to cast your vote. Coming up, headlines and punchlines.